Hello, so now that we set up the navigation, it's time to move on to the help screen. There's so much going on in the help screen, but since this is our fourth project, I think we can handle compressing a lot of tasks in one iteration. So the first step is the problem formulation, which will lead us to define the scope of this particular iteration. And we have two parts of that scope. The first one is train the user on how to use the app, and then train the user on the sound of each note. How are we going to test? So testing scenario 1, say that user navigates to help screen, step 1. Step 2, user clicks on the A button and the app responds with playing the A note. You will have to verify that this note actually is the one that got played by perhaps playing it outside the app and making sure that this works correctly. And then you have testing scenario 2, and in this case you have to actually repeat testing scenario 1 for each of the notes to make sure that they all work correctly. I had a situation before where user tested or the developer tested 6 of the 12 notes, but there was a problem in one of the others that they didn't test, and it was only discovered after everything has been completed. So you need to be very thorough in your testing. There's no tolerance now for apps that do not produce what's expected from it. So be aware of that. And then the other part, which I don't really have much on it, but we have to test it too, is the how to use the app, the tutorial itself. That user navigates to help screen and reads the tutorial So that's that one. And then the solution formulation. In the model, so in the model we have the music note file, which what we had before, so no change from previous iteration. We had them in iteration 1. The music notes, we're gonna load them as a collection of file names, and the music note file is an MP3 file, so that's gonna be used in the AVAudioPlayer. And then you have the score itself. We're not gonna use that. We just need the music note and the music note file. So in the view, also no change, follow the mockup. And in the controller, that's where some of the magic will happen. So in the controller, we will need to add, so in the view from the mockup, maybe I should navigate to the mockup here. In the mockup for the help screen, you have a label, and the label is a multi-line label. It includes a description, and you can add more to that. And then we have buttons here, and when the user clicks on the button, the app should recognize what is the note that the user wants to play and play that note. So we're gonna start first with just doing it on one button and then add the others afterwards. When the user plays a note, and we're gonna download the note files, the big challenge is how do you know how do you match the buttons to the notes? So that what is being used here is matching the text on the button with the name of the note file. So whatever is on the text, that is the name of the file that needs to be played. This matching allows us to, when the user click on the button, we connect to an action function like we did before, and in the action function we retrieve the text from the button, and the text from the button will tell us what is the file name. Then we load the file like we did with the resource files in the past, and initiate the audio player with that content of the file, and then tell the audio player to play. So that's basically the main idea here. So in the controller, we will need to add action function that connects with the note buttons. The label doesn't need any action controller, and what we will need to do in that function is to retrieve the text from the button and use it as the name of the file to open. Then load the contents of the file into the AVAudioPlayer object, and then play the file. So the last step is the solution implementation. And step number 1 is to add label and enter the text. Step number 2, add the button and change the text to A. Then step number 3 is to load the music notes to the app, to the project. So you will need to download the music notes from Blackboard and then add it to the project. And then connect the button to the controller with action function. Make sure that to pass the button as a parameter, and we'll show you how you can do that. And then finally implement the controller and test. So instead of repeating those 4 steps, we'll just implement them here. So let's go ahead and do that. So switch to Xcode, and first thing on the help screen, we add a label. So here is the label, resize it. And add multiple lines. So I'm going to add 8 lines here. If you want to change the colors, perhaps we'll change the color. Red is not good. Do blue, or maybe black. Or maybe we can have a black background. Why don't we do that? The black background, oops, not on the label. Take that to default. On the view itself, do a black background on the view. Then we have the label and change that to white. All right, and then we need to type. So we have the instruction. So the game is made of 3 turns. At the end, so notice that it wraps here, but that's not a wrap. Actually, it will wrap since I increased the number of lines, so I don't have to enter a new line. And in each turn, you will hear a random sound. Your task is to recognize which note is being played and select the button that contains that note name. If the note is correct, you get a point, and that's it. You can come to this screen to practice or view stats in the statistics in the stats screen. So here is that, and it is enough. It covered, so my 8 lines were enough, and the height that I created is also enough. Now let's add the button. So I'll add a button here, and we'll change the text color on the button. Let's see which one will work well. Yeah, I don't know how to choose. I'll just choose that. All right, so and then instead of button, I'll put A. Notice that I am going to use that note name to be the same as the file name. So don't add any extra spaces after the note name, because if you add a space, the space is a recognized character. So just type in the name of the note. So this is the A note. Now you can find the files from Blackboard, and I downloaded them here. Yep, I think I have it. Where do I have it? Here. Here are the notes. So what you can do is drag the notes folder from here to anywhere in your project file, and that will open up the options, the add files to the projects. This is the add files to the project menu, which you can access by going to the file menu and selecting add files, or you can drag the files you want or the folder that contains those files. Very important note, so pay attention here. Make sure you copy items. So select copy items. What this does, if the notes are in a different folder than your project, it will make a copy of it into your project. This is very critical because you're going to be sending me that project or carrying it with you to different computers. So you want to make sure that the files come with you. If you don't do that, when you send me the project, it will come missing those files and it will not work. So make sure you select copy items if needed. Then you have an option. Do you want to add the files to your project on the app bundle or inside a folder? So if you wanted to add it on the app bundle, you can convert the folder to a group like those groups, or you can make an actual folder. So we'll just create groups here. I'll show you later, or actually we loaded files before, and you see when we use the path for resource, the resource was on the bundle. If you choose a folder, the resource will be inside a directory inside that bundle. So you'll have to use a different method or a different functions to retrieve the path to the file. So we'll say here finish. So this will add all the nodes, and here are the nodes. So that's the A node, the B node, the C, the A sharp, the D, the E, F, and all of them here. So make sure that the name of the A node, so it's A.mp3, and the note on the file is also A. So now we are ready to implement the audio player. So before we do that, let's take a look at the AVAudioPlayer. So we'll go to documentation and API reference and type the name AVAudioPlayer. Audio and then AVAudioPlayer. Here it is. And you can see next to it, it tells you this is in the AV Foundation framework. So the AVAudioPlayer, it's part of the AV Foundation. So that's where you can find which framework is included in here, AV Foundation. And it tells you a little bit about it, what you can do with an audio player, how you initialize an audio player. So these are different initializers. You can initialize an audio player with the content of a URL. So it doesn't use a string like we did with the other files. It uses a URL. So we will make sure to, instead of pulling a path for the resource, we're going to pull the URL for the resource. Then there is the function play, which is what we're going to use. It plays the sound of the file. And then there are different other functions that are helpful, and you will need to read about all of them. The audio player also has a delegate if you want to respond to or interact with the audio player while it is playing, like we did with the picker view in Project 3, managing information about the sound itself. So if you are familiar with details of sound, and I think some of you are, you may play with those as well. For us, we just need to initialize it. So that's the function we're going to use, and to play the sound. With Xcode 8, when we use the AVAudioPlayer, it will add the AV foundation automatically to your project. Before then, you had to go to the configuration file and then go to link it frameworks and libraries and add the framework manually like that. When you say add, you can see the frameworks that are loaded with Xcode, but you can also add frameworks. So there are a lot of developers who create libraries and create frameworks that you can download either for free or for a fee, and you can add it to your project, and that gives you access to all the class libraries that are included in that framework. In our case here, the one we need is the AV Foundation framework, so you can say add, and if you add it, it will be added here and added to your project. But if you don't add it, Xcode adds it automatically. So we'll let Xcode add it automatically. So what we need to do now is to connect the ANote file with an action function inside the custom controller. So if you click on the assistant editor, and I'm gonna hide this, the assistant editor, it opens the help view controller.swift, which is the custom controller of the class that I'm selecting. And then from the A button, press the control key and drag anywhere in your project. So I'm gonna drag over here, and we want to make a connection that is an action connection. And an action connection means that once the user click on that button, that function that is connected will be notified. You can decide what type of event. The touch up inside is the click event. There are three options for the argument. The argument, that's the parameter. That's what comes inside the parentheses of the function. And it's kind of, the operating system will initialize some data and send it to you. And the parameter is that method of communication. So you can access whatever the operating system sent to you through that parameter function or argument. There are two things the operating system can send you. The sender, which is the component, the user interface component that the user interacted with, or the sender plus the event that happened. The event that happened is the touch up inside, or the click event. So the operating system wraps up information about the event and can send it to you, or the sender. I need the sender here because I want to grab the text from the button. So I need the operating system to tell me and to send to me a reference to the button that was clicked. So choose the sender as the argument. Once you choose an argument, and notice this is the first time we choose sender. When we connected actions in the previous modules, we choose none. So when you choose none, the none option, the type becomes irrelevant because this is the type of the argument. Now when you select an argument like the sender, the type becomes important. If you leave it any means a generic type, you're not going to access the specific members of the class you want unless you convert from the any to the actual type. But you can set up the type from here. So select the type and change the any to the actual type of the component, which in this case is the UI button. So we add the UI button here and then give the function a name. So we'll say play note. So connect. Notice that here is the IB action, the function, the name, which what we have known before, and then this is the argument. That's the name of the argument, sender. So the button that the user click, you can access members of that button, like the text on the button, through this sender variable. So the sender object is a connection to the button that the user clicked. And that's the type of the button. The colon is where you specify that. And the underscore here because Swift 3 requires a title or a label for the function argument. And if you don't provide one, then you need to add that underscore. So that's why the underscore is added in here. So now I have the function and the connection. So what I need to do after that, first let me switch back to one screen. So I'm done with the user interface and the storyboard. So let's switch to the view controller. And on the view controller here in the import is where you link one of the frameworks to your controller. So the when we added the file, the UI kit is linked automatically, is added automatically. Foundation is linked automatically, and there's another one that we have to link is import AV Foundation. Importing AV Foundation is essential for us to create an object of the AV audio player. So we'll come here and create a reference. So we'll say var player, and the type will be AV audio player, and we're not going to initialize it. Okay. Oops, where I am. Oops, I switched. That's the wrong place. I'm at the view controller. I don't know how did that happen. So delete. This is, well, I'm going to be doing that later on when we create the game, but I need to do it in the help view controller. So yeah, make sure we're in the help view controller. I guess when I switch it back to the main screen, I clicked the view. I need to be in the help view controller. So in the help view controller, let's import AV Foundation. And we need to create the player, an object. We're going to give it the name player, and the type will be AV audio player. And then the exclamation mark, which basically tells Xcode, I'm not going to initialize it now, and I know what I'm doing. The stuff that is marked here, we don't need, so delete all of that. I don't need to do anything now in the view did load. And in the play node, that's where all the action will take place. So step number one, I need to get the text from the button. And then step number two, use the text as the file name and retrieve the URL of the file. Step three, initialize the audio player with the contents of the file. Step four, play the sound or play the note. So step one, get the sender. So we'll say let file name. This will be the name of the file. So since I'm going to get it from the button, I have to save it in memory. So this will be the name of the object in memory, and I have to create the object in memory using either let if I'm not going to change it again, or var if I'm going to change it again. So I use the var for player because I'm going to initialize it later on, and I'm going to use let because I'm not going to reassign anything to that file name. Equal, and then I use the sender because that's the button. So sender, which is a button, and from the button there is a label, title label. It's called title label, and if you learn about the button, you'll find it. So there is the title label, or you can get the text on the button for the control state. We're going to play with the control state later on, so you can either get it through the title label or you can get it through the string, the title directly. I'm going to use the title label, and then want to use the text. This is a label, so what's happening is the button has a label And we've dealt with labels before, and we know how to grab the text from the label. So I believe text, yeah, it has a question mark at the end, so add an exclamation point here. And Xcode will tell you that you haven't used it, which we know we haven't used it. Then we need to initialize the file URL. So let file URL equal. The URL is a type called NSURL or URL. So we'll say here, before we get the URL, we need to get a reference to the app bundle. So app bundle, before we access anything in the app, we need to get the app bundle and get the main bundle. And then from the main bundle, then we can see. So there is these functions we've used in the past, path, and the path for resource, you give it the name of the file and the type, and it gives you the file name as a string. So here we need the URL because it gives you the type as a URL. So the one we want is this URL for resource with extension. And then you see this one with subdirectory. Remember when we were copying the files and there was the option to add a folder for the file? If you added a folder for the file, you will have to use the one with the subdirectory and put the folder name in here. I didn't add it as a folder, so we'll add this one as the URL. And then for the resource, so we'll use the name. So the name is the file name, because I don't know which one the user clicked, but I got it from the title. And then the extension, I know all of them have the same extension, which is MB3. So I add text variable or text literal called MB3. So I have to use the double quotation because it's a string. And then add the exclamation point at the end. So now we found the URL for the file. This is like the URL is like the path. It just proceeds with file : //. Then we need to initialize the audio player. Let's go back to the API documentation quickly. Did I delete that? No, we are here. And then the init function with contents of URL. I clicked on it. So here is the function, and the function says something at the end called throws. So this function throws keyword to indicate that it throws an error in case of failure. So if it tries to open the file and it couldn't, whether because this is not a file of type that it can open or anything like that, it will throw an error. The issue with that is for any function that has the throw keyword, it tells us that it is using something called exception handling to handle the error. And by doing that, we have to use a try expression. The concept is the function could throw the error, so you're trying to execute the function, and if it succeeds, then you get what you want. But if it fails, it gives you back an error that you can catch and then decide what to do with it. The exception handling framework or the try catch allow you to capture possibilities of app crashing and avoid the crash. So once you know something is wrong, you can catch that error and decide what needs to happen. But that is an advanced topic, so I don't want to cover that. If you are up to it, you can follow these links and learn about error handling in Swift. But if not, we just need to know that if we find a function that has throws, we need to precede it with the try keyword. So we'll see how we can do that. So now we're initializing the player variable. So I'll use the name of the player because whatever is initialized, I want to put it in the player. And then we'll say try. And then in the try, I'll use try and suppress the error. Yeah, I think that's the one I'm going to use. And then we'll say AVAudioPlayer. And then you open for the initializer. and have the content of the URL, and then type the name of the URL, file URL. And then I think that will be it. So now the player is opened. This means that I decided not to catch the error. I'm assuming here, because I'm giving the user a button with the actual node, so the user is not typing anything. So it is a very controlled environment. So if app crashes, it's probably because I did something wrong in the code, or when you named the file, so I can capture that in testing. So I'm confident that the app is not going to crash from here, so I'm consciously bypassing catching the error. If you were giving the user, for instance, a text field to type in the name of the file, you will have to do some error handling because you have no idea what the user will type. But when I give him the button, I know what will give. All what the user need is to click a button. So then play the notes. So we'll say player and then play. So that's all what we need to do. So let's try. Takes some time to compile and to build the project, and we have a new framework added, so it takes a little bit the first time you load it here. So here is our app. We're gonna need to navigate to the help screen and then click the button, and you hear a sound. I don't know if you're gonna hear it in the video or not, but you hear the sound, and I don't know if that's correct. So you can go to the project navigation, and Xcode actually will load. Can I play it from here? Yeah, here it is. So that's what Xcode, what the actual file with A is, and that's. So I'm pretty confident it is the correct one. Where is it? Where did it go? Yeah, here it is. And here is my actual project. So it looks like we have it correct, and that is the first one. And back to this, so we added the button, changed the text to A, and then implement the controller and test. Then the next step, which will next step is to add the rest, add additional buttons, and change the text to the names of the rest of the files, and connect the additional buttons to the same function. And we'll do that in a second video because I think this became too long. So we'll stop this one and then we'll continue in the next video.